Well, hello everybody, it's Adam from LUCIDPIXUL, and it is my great pleasure to bring you the Art of Shadow of the Tomb Raider. A very important book with a very important heritage for more than one reason. Number one, it was produced in large part by Eidos Montreal. So shout out to my homegirls and my homeboys for your masterpiece of a game. And the second thing is, if you've been playing video games and have owned pretty much every console since the dawn of gaming from home, then you will remember how monumental and iconic the Tomb Raider series was. Up until that point, there were few, if any, games that gave you that level of character control and connection and immersiveness between character and environment, save maybe games like Metal Gear, okay? Lastly, she's a character who has a female hero character who has lasted the test of time. And I've seen a lot of potential female characters not quite pull it off well. More often than not, it was usually the male characters that resonated through the ages. And you have to tip your hat to the fact that she has survived all these years, despite going through so many different dramatic iterations. Okay, still staying faithful to being Lara Croft in that respect. So let's crack this open. And the first thing you're going to notice right off the bat, something you'll notice, for instance, from art books that I've reviewed, like Game of Thrones and Blade Runner 2049, or Assassin's Creed Odyssey, or you name it. There's a whole bunch of them. The use of photobashing in the artwork. Why? To speed things up. Recreating reality, the density and the richness of realistic textures and realistic lighting and realistic architecture and realistic design can be extremely time consuming, particularly when you're working on a huge ambitious game like Tomb Raider. Okay, so to speed things up, very often there's a heavy use of photobashing. This is more of just an eye opener for anybody who wants to work in video games and art. This is something to familiarize yourself with, albeit if you look at the beautiful execution of this, it doesn't detract away from the fact that these artists have a very solid sense of fundamentals in art. They're working fast. They have to output a lot of games. I hate using that word, output. They have to produce a lot of artwork every day, so they don't have time to dawdle over tiny little details. So cut and pasting little textures and details have to speed it up and get to the point very quickly. And that helps them produce more and be able to meet deadlines and things like that, but beautifully executed. Now, when it comes to the actual design of the character, there were a lot of challenges. Lara Croft is an extremely well-known character. She is a household name when it comes to anybody who plays video games. And she's known not only in terms of her appearance, but she's also known in terms of her character, her personality. But the challenge that was posed in this game is she's facing multiple different types of elements in the game. She's, she's on windswept, blizzard, avalanche mountaintops and hot jungles and modern cityscapes. Her landscape, her environment changes drastically throughout the game. So they had to find a way to maintain the elegance of her character in the design, while still simultaneously making her adaptable, right, to these different environments. So, and it ended up creating some beautifully original designs in her character. And striking that balance between the two, you can see just how much work they put into all of these designs. You take it for granted, you just put on a cool costume and say, oh, that looks cool, and you go and play with it, but you don't realize how much thought the artists and the directors put into figuring this out. And I find they've pulled it off amazingly. Now, when it comes to the weapons, I loved they had a very smart design philosophy behind it. Martin Dubois, who is the senior art director for the game in Montreal, in Eidos Montreal, was playing around with these different design philosophies. And in some cases they were overdone, and so in some cases they weren't iconic enough. So what he wanted to do is, number one, make them iconic, but number two, make them Lara Crofty. And who is Lara Croft as a character? What makes her credible as a hero character? Well, it's the fact that she was a survivalist. It was the fact that she was a badass. It's the fact that she could solo against an entire horde of enemies. And as such, they decided to integrate elements from campsites, elements from natural materials, In this particular case, he fell on the idea of using the color of the paint from the tents and the huts and integrate that into the weaponry itself. And at the same time, using a lot of easy to accessible materials, such as bungee cords and duct tape and hide and leather and things like that. And he brought them all together to make them a little bit more iconic. And if you bring this into the guns design, what Daniel Drapeau, the senior game director, mentions over here is that she refused, it says here, what is it? She refused to modernize herself. I can't remember where it's written exactly. She refused to modernize herself. Think about that for a second. What is it that gives her that little sense of superiority? That little sense of she's a credible adversary against the enemies, against the bad guys. It's the fact that she doesn't need to have the coolest, newest, flashiest, cleanest weapons. It's the fact that she's a survivalist. She can use ready-made, easy-to-access materials and upgrade the grips and upgrade the functionality of her weapons that way. And that allows her to survive realistically under much harsher conditions. There's this survivalist I love to watch sometimes. I can't remember what his name is. But he talks about the experience of survival. He talks about how to keep yourself alive alone in extremely harsh conditions. It's really eye-opening. And this leads to her credibility. And you can see just on a subliminal level where the DIY weapons, the DIY design really contributes in a very substantial way to her credibility as a hero character, especially in these very harsh environments. Another thing that I find extremely important and wasn't necessarily something that needed to be in the game, but I thought that was a very smart move. That Richard and Amelia Croft, her parents, who died of mysterious causes, that their backstory was brought into it. It kind of leaked a little bit into the story. And the reason why this is really cool is if you think about, for instance, cold readers, people who pretend to be clairvoyants and stuff like that. One of the common things that they'll say is, you got along better with your mother, right? And they go, wow, how did you know? Well, if you think about it, that's something that's pretty easy to read in a person's personality. You can kind of tell if somebody gets along with their mother or their father better, or if they're more influenced by their mother or father. You can just tell by their personality. And in this, they mention the fact that when her father passed away, he was, quote, very close to her father. That doesn't have anything to do with her, how much she loved or how much she cared for her mother. It just shows who she related to more in terms of personality. She adopted more of his traits in a sense. So knowing that she was a little bit closer to her father in terms of personality, in a sense helps to round out her personality, where she ended up. And it also helps to show, if just by looking at them and getting a bit of their backstory and seeing the way they look and the way they dress, it explains a little bit of her aristocratic background. It explains her accent. It explains her strength. It explains her wisdom, her intelligence. It explains her poshness sometimes, right? Which again lends to her character. What I like about her character, though, and I will say this, is that sometimes particularly female characters are portrayed as being a little bit pushy in the confidence section of things, in the sense that it makes them arrogant, it makes them a little bit unapproachable, and that's a very delicate line to walk in terms of character creation, because you want her to be strong, you want her to be capable, you want her to be able to speak out against other people and stand her ground, but at the same time, you don't want her to be an asshole. Right? So I like the fact that they struck that nice balance, not through her alone, but also through her relationships with her friends. Like Jonah, for instance, she's got a compassion for him. She's got a gentle side for him. He's a very loyal friend of hers. He's kind of her teddy bear in a sense. And Abby as well, who is also a very kind person, but who also has that strength, who has that integrity. The concept artist for her, which was Maxime Verheyen. I'm not sure if that's a French name. Verheyen. I'm not sure. That doesn't sound, at least it doesn't sound like Quebec French. but did something extremely cool. I like the way he approached her facial design, her character design. He gave her a calming, confident smile. He describes her smile in this article here. And that says a lot about a character. It's not a show-offy smile. It's not an overconfident smile. It's not a cocky, smirky smile. It's just a calm, friendly smile. It shows strength. It shows confidence. It shows integrity. And it's that aspect of Abby's personality that Lara gravitates towards, and they end up becoming friends. Now, we get into the Trinity Soldiers. And the first thing that should jump out at you, if you remember what I said about Lara's weapons, is look at how blingy these guys are. The bullets, the badges, the night vision goggles, the shiny, brand new polished weapon with all the armor and crap. They're meant to be show-offy. And that subliminally comes across as being overcompensating. Too many of them, and they're all flashy. Their weapons look like they just kind of... they just took it off the wall, they polished it, they put it down on a little silk cloth. Not Lara, she wraps hide around the handle. That's better, right? She's got scars and scratches, she's covered in mud. She'll sleep in the mud under a log for 3 days, getting chewed on by maggots, just so that she can, just so that nobody knows she's their type of character, where these guys are kind of going, ew, no, ooh, gross. It kind of gives off that impression a little bit, right? I thought that was a very cool way of going about the design. Same thing here. The weapons, all of these things are nice and shiny and new, which is not an indication of their strength. It's an indication of them trying to spend money on success rather than earning it through hard work. Now, if you've ever seen my book review on Horizon Zero Dawn, you can check it out right here. A very cool, very effective creator tool, a way to find inspiration. Let's say you're world building or character building, and you don't just want to come up with a character and an environment, but you want to get a little bit more of a story evolution through it. Kind of like my friend Tyler Edlin's Sunderfall series, is the integration of different tribes, different cultures, and through those different tribes, you have to adhere to a very limited set of parameters. So the design aesthetic, the status, the wealth, their access to materials, their access to dyes, the type of face paint that they use, their personalities, such as Unuratu, the leader of the Paititi tribe. You can see her sun emblem necklace. You can see the way what the face paint represents. You can see the use of colors. Here it's a little bit more noble, a little bit, there's more golds and shiny bits here. Here's some nice, elegant, clean lines. I love this design. It's probably one of my favorites. It's the red and white. It's very, very South American, very Peruvian, very kind of South American, Mexican influence there, which I find really pretty. And then you get into the rebels, which I find have this kind of cool, it almost makes me think of cyberpunk a little bit, right? Even here, the scarring makes me think a little bit about cyberpunk as well, although their design overlapped, that wasn't stolen. But the beautiful use of these graphic colors with these monochromatic, deep gray sepia tones with the gold sepia tones, that is beautiful to me. I absolutely love that. But notice that because we're using more neutral sepia brown earth tones, that they don't draw too much attention to themselves, do they? They're a little bit more neutral as a clan. But then we have our lower district citizens. Again, you can see this in, for instance, Big Hero 6, my book review for Big Hero 6, and then I'll wait 3 seconds. 3, 2, 1 for the card to go away. And Ghost of Tsushima, which you can check out right here on this card. Secondary characters, background characters, filler characters. Not everything should be flashy. You want to be able to show commoners, common vehicles, common weapons, common buildings, common architecture, and work your way up the echelon towards higher and higher and higher status characters. And we should be able to see a visual progression in the materials and the colors. And in this particular case, the lower district, the poor people, the more neutral characters that you see walking around town, notice their use of very neutral colors. These are sweethearts. Look at these cute faces. All of these little neutral tones and neutral colors. They don't draw attention to themselves. But upper district, boom, right? That they all of a sudden become very colorful. They have access to more expensive dyes and more expensive materials. They have access to more, perhaps in markets or through hunting, they've gained access to more beautiful feathers from more beautiful kills. And here's a very cool fact, a very cool element. Just something that I thought of when I saw this. I watch a lot of documentaries, David Attenborough documentaries, nature documentaries, all that kind of stuff. And in them, one of the things that I've always found interesting was how it's the male bird, the male of a species that's very often the more colorful, the more flamboyant. If you look at a male peacock, if you look at a male turkey, if you look at a male cardinal, if you look at a male tropical, like those beautiful tropical birds with all these colors, the boys always have the blues and the yellows, and they do all these big dances and stuff. And the girls are she's beige, she's gray and beige. She's just meh. It's always the boys that are all blinged up. And how it's curious how in modern day society that role has very often been reversed, where it's very often the women who wear the dresses and the earrings and the makeup. But in the case of ancient tribes, people who are more influenced directly by nature, it would make more sense. And we've witnessed this through documentaries, different tribes, people and stuff like that, how very often, again, it's the male. It's the leader of the tribe who has the biggest headdress, who has the fanciest clothing, the most elegant clothing. And it's the males who stand out next to the females, because that's probably what they've observed from nature. Isn't that curious? Now, in these particular cases, these are ceremonial. So notice the use of elegant lines and the softer colors and the more, I always hit that lamp when I'm talking with my hands. These flamboyant, but more relaxed designs. But if you flip the page, here's another couple of, these are beautiful. Look at these beautiful colors. These are some of my favorite designs in the book. You flip forward to the warriors. Look at the graphic design elements, the black-tipped wings that have more aggressive blade shapes to them. If we flip back a couple of pages, these aren't necessarily intimidating designs. Maybe from more of a religious aspect where they have the headdress, which more like a kind of a monstrous face. But here, if this guy was chasing after me, I'd feel far more threatened. The unblinking dark eye makeup to really emphasize the white of the eyes to show his focus, the really aggressive feather designs and the strong beak designs. These guys are far more intimidating to look at. Hence their warrior design. The undead, okay, the Yaxel, really makes me think a lot of Horizon Zero Dawn. Definitely, I definitely see that same sensitivity to design in these ones as well. But the desaturated colors of undead, the reds, colors of blood and death, and the use of natural materials, much less colorful, flamboyant things, far more decrepit, scary. Makes me think a lot of, for instance, Lord of the Rings. Like the hordes in Lord of the Rings, that kind of the bones and very evil type of characters. Absolutely beautiful. The everyday people back in the city. So now we have tribal designs, but now we bring this into NPCs in the city itself. And you can see how now we've got more everyday stuff. Think about how ambitious this game is. Think about how many different ecosystems, different climates, different environments, different cultures, different times that they've had to tackle in this game. And they managed to attack this entire game with such prowess that I'm speechless. Wow, well done. So I'm gonna end my book review here on this note because, of course, it's just a teaser. I can't go through the entire book. It's just to whet your appetite. But how did I feel when I got this book as a gift? So I'm very thankful for that. Thank you, Jen, for this wonderful gift. It was a birthday gift. How did I feel when I got this and I read it for the first time? Well, number one, I felt extremely proud. I felt proud to be in the same city, to be part of, just to be close to such gifted artists at Eidos, who haven't only managed to create such a revolutionary and iconic game, but have managed to, very much in the vein of the game itself, in the design of the game itself, have managed to survive the elements of time. They've managed to survive through different iterations, different rewrites, different interpretations of such an iconic character, such iconic gameplay, and have managed to translate that into modern time and continue to push the bar of graphics and cinematic gameplay and character development and beautiful aesthetic design. that has survived all of these years while maintaining the original integrity of that first game. When I play Tomb Raider, when I played Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I felt like I was back home playing that original version. And I can't stress enough how proud I am that I can breathe the same air as these gifted people. And to you, if you're interested in this book yourself, I highly recommend it. It's probably one of the most beautiful books I've read, one of the most amazing games I've played. If you haven't played the game, good God, what are you waiting for? And of course, stay tuned. I've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla coming next. So thank you for joining me, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Take care.